This woman squats on the ground to relieve herself. Her embarrassed parents turn their heads away. She finishes quickly. Without wiping her buttocks, she puts on her pants, picks up a plastic bag from the side, grabs the feces from the ground and puts it in the bag, then ties up the bag and hands it over to her father. Her father takes it, takes a deep breath, and forcefully throws it into a deep pit. But sometimes accidents happen. The bag breaks, and whoever's face it falls on just has to accept their misfortune. This is so disgusting. What is all of this about? The story begins with a boy named John. He had nothing to do and wandered in the woods. Suddenly he saw a deep pit ahead. As he approached, he realized it was about 4 or 5 meters deep. And a terrifying thought crossed his mind. He once had a very harmonious family, with an older sister and parents, but he wasn't happy at all. No matter what he did, his parents were always controlling him, and he had to go to school. He found it repulsive. Even during vacations, his parents arranged extracurricular activities for him. He finally got a break when playing tennis, lying on the couch, relaxing, but his sister came over to nag at him. He looked out the window, feeling like he was trapped in a prison. No freedom at all. So he decided to take action. He added some drugs into a cup. After dinner, the entire family was drugged by him. He carefully clapped his hands, not waking them up. Then one by one, he dragged them out and put them in the car. One by one, he poured them into the deep pit. The next day, his sister woke up and wondered why she was sleeping here. She quickly woke up her sleeping parents. They were all frightened. The walls of the deep pit were incredibly smooth. There was no chance to climb out. They could only shout for help at the opening. Clearly, there was no one around. On the other hand, John was quite comfortable. First, he imitated his parents' voices and called the school to take a leave of absence. Then he drove his father's BMW to the town's bank to check his father's bank card. There were still $750,000. Looks like he needs to be frugal. He casually withdrew $200, bought a bunch of fried chicken to bring home, so he wouldn't have to worry about food, worry about his parents starving. He brought water and food to the deep pit. When his parents saw him, they thought they might be saved. But John just left after dropping off the water and food. He's really a dutiful son. They immediately realized that John was the culprit. The parents angrily cursed at their son. Curse your own selves. John does his own thing. Now the entire house is his domain. He moved the game console to his bedroom, planning to play as long as he wants. No one will bother him anymore. Meanwhile, the parents in the deep pit suffer. The three of them try standing on each other's shoulders to climb out. Unfortunately, it's just a little bit short. It seems that the only way to get out is to wait for someone to rescue from outside. In this big house, there is only John alone. Being alone is not fun. He even drives to pick up his friends and play at home together. The two kids play games at home, without parents to control them. That feeling of freedom is indescribable. After playing enough, he sends his friend home and gives him some money. Consider it as a reward for playing with himself. At least he enjoyed himself. His parents are suffering in the pit. The most embarrassing thing is squatting on the ground to relieve themselves. The space is small. The whole pit is very smelly. It's impossible to feel relieved quickly. They can only hold it and go slowly. Then there is the scene at the beginning of the video. To prevent the pit from being too smelly, the feces needs to be dealt with. Put it in a plastic bag and hand it over to her father to throw away. But if the bag accidentally breaks, it will fall on their face, without water to wash it off. You can imagine how disgusting it is. That's how they have been locked up for a few days now. They can only eat banana skins when they are hungry, because they don't know when they will be rescued. Finally, on this day, his mother's friend came to the door. No response to messages all along. Phone calls were unanswered. She thought something happened at their house. John lied and said his parents went on a trip. Obviously, such lies wouldn't fool the woman. She called the police, and a police officer arrived. But they searched around the house. No suspicious areas were found. Unfortunately, the police had to leave. Ants have invaded the food in the house. And the people in the pit are starving and weak. The man never thought that he would be starved to death by his own son. Just at that moment, the boy finally appeared. He lowered a bucket with a rope. The daughter took the bucket. She found red wine and food inside. The father noticed the rope. Maybe they could climb out with it. But then, the boy took out scissors. He didn't give them any chance. The father felt helpless. At that moment, he had no way to resist. Forget it. Let's eat first. John sat there and ate. It felt like the family was having a meal together again. In the lonely night, John was alone at home. They say the night is the loneliest time. Playing with the lights in the house out of boredom. Feeling that being alone is not so great. After being alone for a while, you get tired of it. It's not like what he expected. He drove his car and raced in the forest, tears streaming down his face. At this moment, he deeply understood his mistake. The next morning, he went to the deep pit. He saw that his parents and sister were in a pitiful state. His heart was filled with regret and self-blame. He randomly grabbed a ladder and lowered it. The three people below finally saw hope. Luckily, the ladder was long enough. They successfully climbed up. The three of them walked in the forest in a sorry state. If you were them, what would you do after catching your son? I dare not say about other things, but at the very least, a beating would be inevitable. At the same time, the three of them are also thinking. Is it possible that their love for their son was not enough? As they continue walking, they discover a person soaking in a pool ahead. Needless to say, they have already guessed it. They hurriedly jump into the water to rescue the child. The movie ends here. What do you have to say? Leave your comments in the comments section quickly.